My name is William. I'm 58 years old and live in a quiet suburb of St. Paul, Minnesota. I've never been a man of luxury, but I've always held on to a few things tightly: my integrity, my work ethic, and my belief that family matters more than anything else. I spent over 3 decades teaching high school math, and now that I'm retired, I still wake up early out of habit. I read the newspaper in print. I say sir and ma'am. I believe in old-fashioned things, like showing up for the people who raised you. My son Matt is 27. He lives in Chicago and works for a startup, something in tech I can never quite explain right. He's smart, driven, and independent. I used to think of him as the best thing I ever did, but now I'm not so sure. His mother, Margaret, died of a stroke 8 years ago. She passed quietly one morning before sunrise. Matt was in his last semester at the University of Wisconsin. He flew back that same day and didn't leave my side for a week. We cried in the same kitchen we used to laugh in. We tried to hold on to each other like two people grabbing onto the same piece of driftwood in the middle of a storm. After the funeral, he hugged me and said, "It's just us now, Dad." I believed him. Last year, when he got into a car accident and totaled his old Toyota, he called me in tears. He said he didn't know how he'd get to work. He didn't ask, but I offered. I cashed in part of my retirement, the small emergency fund Margaret and I had built, and bought him a used 2020 Honda Civic. It wasn't flashy, but it was clean and reliable. He cried again when I gave it to him. Said, "Dad, I'll never forget this. Never." I believed that too. I started prepping for Christmas early this year, like I always do. I strung lights on the porch the day after Thanksgiving. I unpacked the box of ornaments, including the glittery paper angel Matt made in 3rd grade. I bought his favorite kind of ham and froze it. Then, on December 3rd, he called. His voice was firm, not cold, but rehearsed. "Dad, listen. Sarah and I decided to do our own thing this year. Just the two of us. We want to start some new traditions." It hit me like a gust of freezing wind straight to the chest. New traditions? Our old ones weren't good enough anymore? I didn't say much. Just nodded, told him I understood, hung up and sat there staring at the tree. A tree decorated with ornaments from his childhood. The same boy who once begged me to leave cookies out for Santa, even when he was 12, just in case. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat in the living room under the soft glow of the Christmas lights, the house so silent it almost felt like it had stopped breathing. And that's when I made the decision. Not out of anger, out of heartbreak. The car was still in my name. Legally, it was mine. I'd added a tracker to it for safety when I gave it to him, and it was still active, so I called a Chicago towing service and gave them the address. If he was grown enough to start his own Christmas, then maybe he was grown enough to figure out his own transportation too. The tow company called me the next morning to confirm. "You want us to pick it up from this address and bring it to a storage lot?" the guy asked, probably thinking I was repossessing a lease or something. "Yes," I said flatly, "and I'll pay in full over the phone." It wasn't cheap, but that wasn't the point. This wasn't about money. This was about the silence after that call, the feeling that I'd been erased. Not maliciously, not cruelly, just forgotten, like an old Christmas ornament that doesn't match the new color scheme. He didn't even try to include me. Didn't say, "Come visit us instead," or "We'll do a video call." Just, "We're doing our own thing." Like I was no longer part of the family equation. I didn't want to hurt him. That's not who I am. But I needed him to feel something, to realize that actions have weight. I imagined the look on his face when he'd go out to the street and the car would be gone. Confused at first, then maybe furious. Maybe he'd call me. Maybe he'd shout. Maybe, just maybe, he'd realize that it wasn't about the car. I waited. Hours passed. Then, late that night, he called. "What the hell, Dad?" His voice was strained, tight with disbelief. Not angry yet, just stunned. "I needed that car. You can't just take it." I took a breath, kept my voice calm. "It's still in my name, Matt, legally. I never signed the title over." "Yeah, but," he started, then stopped. "You gave it to me. You said it was mine." "I also thought we were family," I said quietly. I thought we spent Christmas together. There was a pause, a long one. Is this because we didn't come this year? I said nothing. Let the silence answer for me. Jesus, Dad, we just wanted 1 year to ourselves. It's not like I said we're never coming again. But the thing is, he didn't say that either. He didn't say anything. And maybe that's what hurt the most. The assumption that I'd just be here waiting year after year, no questions asked, like a piece of furniture, reliable, unchanging, quiet. I told him the car would be stored for now, safe, and that he could come get it after Christmas. Another long silence. You're punishing me. No, I said. I'm reminding you. Of what? That I'm still your father. He didn't respond, just hung up. I sat there staring at the phone, my hands trembling, not from rage but from the weight of something much heavier, regret. The next few days felt strangely hollow. I didn't expect joy exactly, but I thought maybe I'd feel some vindication, a sense that I'd made a point, drawn a line, reclaimed a little dignity, but all I felt was quiet. I avoided my sister Claire's calls. She'd ask about Matt. She always did. I didn't want to lie, and I wasn't ready to explain. The house felt too big for one person, too decorated for no guests. I caught myself turning off the tree lights in the morning, as if the house itself was embarrassed to still be trying. I replayed the conversation with Matt again and again in my mind. The disbelief in his voice, the hurt, the way he said punishing, like I was a villain in some story he was now telling Sarah. Sarah. I barely knew her. We'd met twice. She was polite, but distant, the kind of person who always seemed to be checking a clock in her mind. I didn't blame her for wanting new traditions. Everyone wants to carve out their own identity. But did that have to mean carving me out of it? 3 days after the call, Matt sent a text, just 5 words. I don't understand you anymore. I stared at those words for a long time. They were cold, not angry, not accusing, just detached, like I was becoming someone foreign to him, or maybe he was to me. I almost replied, almost tried to explain that this wasn't just about a holiday. It was about the last 8 years. Every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, every time I stood alone washing 2 plates instead of 3. The way I watched him grow more distant each year, even as I tried harder to stay close. But I didn't send anything. What could I say that wouldn't sound like guilt-tripping? What words could translate the ache of seeing your child's childhood boxed in the attic while they forget the man who packed it away? So I sat, in silence, in my empty house. And then, one afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened the old videotapes. Margaret used to film everything. Birthdays, first days of school, Matt losing his first tooth. I hadn't watched them since she died. They were too heavy, like walking through a museum of my own grief. But that day I needed to see him. The boy who used to reach for my hand when we crossed the street. The one who'd fall asleep in my lap during Christmas movies. The screen flickered to life. There he was, age 4, trying to put the star on top of the tree. Margaret was laughing behind the camera. I was holding him up, steadying him. "Don't let go, Daddy," he shouted. "I won't," I said, my voice younger, fuller. And I hadn't. Not then. Not for years. So how did we get here? After watching the old tapes, I couldn't bring myself to turn off the TV. I let the static hum fill the room, like some sort of ghostly comfort. Seeing Matt as a child, so small, so open-hearted, stirred something I hadn't let myself feel in a long time. Grief, not just for Margaret, but for the version of us that no longer existed. I made my way to the garage. It was December 10th. Snow had started to gather in soft sheets outside. The garage smelled like old paint and motor oil. In the back corner, under a dusty tarp, was Matt's first bike, the one he begged for every single day in the summer before his 8th birthday. Red, with black handlebars and a dent on the left side from when he tried to ride down the hill on Lexington Avenue and crashed into a mailbox. He came home with bloody knees and tears in his eyes, and I remember lifting him into the kitchen sink to wash him off. He clung to my neck like he never wanted to let go. That same boy now wouldn't even call me on Christmas. I didn't know what I was looking for in the garage, maybe a memory, maybe forgiveness. But what I found instead was the receipt for the car, the Civic, folded neatly inside an old folder of financial papers, paid in full, my name, my account. I stared at it for a long time. A car, after all, is just metal and wires. But in my heart, it had been something more. A way to say, I still have your back. A father's way of staying close, even when life pulled us apart. I wondered if Matt ever saw it that way, or if to him it was just a transaction, a gift received, forgotten, filed away like so many of my calls and voicemails. I sat in the driver's seat of my own car and let the heater run while the snow fell. I stared through the windshield at the blurry lights of the neighborhood, and I asked myself a hard question. Had I done the right thing? Or had I pushed him away for good? It's strange how love can turn into pride, and pride into silence, and how silence, more than any fight, can tear people apart. That night I didn't sleep. Again. I stood by the front door around midnight and stared at the little figurines on the mantel, the ones Margaret bought on a trip to Vermont years ago. A little snowman family, smiling, frozen in ceramic. A mother, a father, a child, and I wondered if Matt had put up decorations in Chicago, if Sarah had bought matching pajamas, if they'd made hot cocoa together, or if they'd forgotten the taste of home altogether. I thought of calling him again, but I didn't, because I still didn't know if I wanted to be right, or if I just wanted my son back. On December 14th, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of black coffee and a yellow legal pad in front of me. I hadn't written anything by hand in years, but the computer felt too impersonal, too cold. I wanted something that felt more like me. So I began writing Matt a letter, not a long one, not dramatic, just honest, just a father, trying to speak in plain words. Matt, I don't know when things changed between us. I'm not angry about Christmas. I'm not even angry about the car. I think I'm just tired of feeling like I'm the only one trying to hold on to something that matters. Maybe you see it differently. Maybe I haven't been the father you needed lately. Maybe you've grown into a man I don't quite recognize anymore. But I still see that little boy in my mind, the one who used to beg me to stay 5 more minutes at bedtime. I don't want to fight. I don't want to be right. I just want to matter. Love, Dad. I folded the letter and placed it in an envelope. But I didn't write his address. I didn't even put a stamp on it. It sat on the kitchen counter for days, quietly judging me. I kept expecting him to call again, to yell, to demand the car back. But he didn't. He didn't say a word. And every day that passed made me feel smaller, like I was the one who'd overreacted, like I'd broken something I wasn't strong enough to fix. Claire finally called and I answered this time. She could tell something was off right away. You sound like you're carrying something heavy, Will. So I told her everything, the car, the call, the silence since. She listened quietly, and then she said something that hit harder than I expected. Do you want to win an argument? Or do you want your son? I didn't answer, because I didn't know anymore. I'd always taught Matt to stand up for himself, to not let people take advantage. But had I taught him too well? Had I made it too easy for him to walk away? That night I stood outside on the porch, letting the cold sting my face. It was snowing again. The quiet kind of snow that makes the world feel still and untouched. I thought about all the Christmases before, the chaos, the wrapping paper everywhere, the smell of gingerbread cookies, Margaret singing off-key in the kitchen, Matt trying to sneak an extra gift under the tree. And now, silence. The letter stayed on the counter, unsent, unread, like so much between us. On December 18th, I did something I never thought I would. I drove to Chicago. I didn't tell Matt. I didn't have a plan. I just packed a small bag, filled the gas tank and started driving. 8 hours of Midwest winter roads, my hands gripping the wheel tighter than necessary, trying to convince myself this was just about the car. But it wasn't. It was about that space between us, growing wider with every silent day. When I reached the address, it was late afternoon. Snow was falling again, light and slow. I parked across the street out of sight. The Civic wasn't there anymore. The tow company had already moved it to their lot. His street was quiet, lined with brownstones and string lights. Cozy, young, the kind of place you move to when you're building your own life. I watched the front windows for a while. Then I saw them, Matt and Sarah, sitting on the couch. She had her legs tucked under her, holding a mug. He was laughing at something on the TV, comfortable, at home. It hit me harder than I expected. He looked happy, not the forced kind of happy you wear for your parents, not polite, just content. I should have felt relief, but all I felt was distance. I was watching a life I wasn't invited into. I sat there, frozen, unsure what I wanted anymore. Did I want to confront him, hand him the letter, apologize, demand something? I opened the glove compartment and pulled out the envelope, the letter I had written days ago. My hands trembled as I looked at his name on the front. Then I saw him stand up and walk toward the window. He looked out, scanning the street for a second. I ducked. Ridiculous, I know. A grown man, hiding from his own son. But I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready for him to look through the glass and see disappointment in my face, or worse, indifference in his. After a while, the lights dimmed inside. I didn't get out. I didn't knock. I just sat there for another hour, letter in hand, until the cold crept into the car and reminded me I didn't belong on that street. Then I drove to a cheap motel off the highway, checked in, and lay on the bed fully clothed, staring at the ceiling. Somewhere around 2 a.m., I took out my phone. Still no messages, no calls. I typed a text. I was in town, I just wanted to see you. But I didn't send it. I deleted it and turned the phone face down, and for the first time since Margaret died, I cried. Not because I'd lost something, but because I was realizing I might have let go of it myself. I drove back to Minnesota the next morning. 8 hours of silence. No music, no podcasts. Just the rhythmic hum of tires on pavement and the kind of thoughts that only show up when the world is quiet and unforgiving. When I got home, I didn't unpack. I didn't turn on the lights. I sat on the couch in my coat and stared at the unlit Christmas tree like it was a stranger in my living room. December 24th came faster than I expected. Christmas Eve. In years past, the house would have smelled like cinnamon and roasting ham. My sister Claire would have arrived by now, her boys running through the hallway. Matt would have been upstairs wrapping a last-minute gift and pretending he'd had it ready for weeks. But this year, the silence was louder than ever. Claire called again. "Come spend Christmas with us," she said. "You shouldn't be alone." I thanked her but said no. Part of me wanted the solitude, the punishment. Another part, the stubborn, aching part, was still waiting for Matt to change his mind. To call. To say, "We're coming after all, Dad." But he didn't. That night I went to the late service at the small church down the road. I hadn't been there in months. The sanctuary was full of familiar faces and soft candlelight. I took a seat in the back corner, alone. During the last hymn, Silent Night, I looked around. Families stood shoulder to shoulder, some singing with tears in their eyes. A little girl up front kept fidgeting with her dress. An elderly couple in front of me held hands, their fingers shaking together. I felt like I was watching something sacred from the outside, like I didn't belong anymore. After the service, an older man I'd seen around, Jerry, I think, came over and said, "You're William, right? Matt's dad?" I nodded. "He used to talk about you all the time when he was in high school. You'd pick him up after youth group sometimes, always had that thermos in your hand." He chuckled. I managed a small smile. "Yeah, that was me. He's a good kid," Jerry said. "Life gets busy, but I'm sure he'll find his way back." I nodded again, but I didn't believe it. Not fully. I walked home in the cold, the streets empty, the air sharp. When I got inside, I poured myself a drink, just one. Then I sat down at the kitchen table and stared at the unopened letter still sitting on the counter. I thought of all the words I'd wanted to say over the years, all the ways I'd failed to say them. And for the first time, I began to wonder if Matt's silence wasn't just about this year, but years of small distances that neither of us knew how to close. Maybe this wasn't about the car. Maybe it was about everything that came before it. Christmas morning came, grey and still. I made coffee like I always do. I didn't bother with the tree lights. The house was cold in a way no furnace could fix, the kind of cold that seeps into the corners of your spirit. I sat at the kitchen table in my robe, the envelope still in front of me, unopened, unsent. It had become a kind of monument to my own stubbornness, or maybe just my fear. I thought about calling him, just to say Merry Christmas, but it felt hollow now, like trying to dress a wound that was already infected. So I poured myself another cup of coffee and opened the window curtains instead. Across the street, a neighbor's grandkids were playing in the snow. Their laughter floated through the air like music from a past life. I watched the smallest one, a girl in a pink coat, try to roll a snowball bigger than herself. Her father came up behind her, helped steady it, and together they pushed it forward. And I thought suddenly of all the things I had tried to teach Matt: how to tie a tie, how to throw a curveball, how to check the oil in his car, how to shake hands with confidence. But I never taught him how to come back after a fight. I never taught him how to say "I miss you" without shame, because I didn't know how to do those things myself. In my family, men didn't say things like that. We fixed things with our hands, not our words. We said "I love you" with gas money, or by showing up to help move furniture. Emotion was a quiet thing buried under duty. Maybe Matt had grown up seeing that in me, and maybe now he was just doing the same, staying silent, staying proud, pretending none of it hurt. Just like me. That thought sat heavy on my chest. Later that day, Claire came by with a plate of food. She hugged me longer than usual. "I saved you some ham," she said with a soft smile, "and the boys said it wasn't Christmas without Uncle Will's stories." I almost cried, but I didn't. I thanked her and said I was fine. After she left, I reheated the ham and sat at the table, eating alone, watching the snow drift past the window like time itself. I thought about Matt's face when he was a boy, how he'd beam when I came to pick him up. I thought about the way he used to run down the stairs on Christmas morning, like nothing in the world could be better than seeing me. I wondered when that changed, when I stopped being the person he ran toward. And then I asked myself the hardest question yet. Was it really him who walked away? Or did I let go of his hand long before he ever turned around? By the time the sun set on Christmas Day, I had stopped checking my phone. Every buzz up to that point had felt like a jolt of electricity, a cruel little hope that maybe, just maybe, Matt had changed his mind, that he'd say something, anything, even if it was anger. But there was nothing. No text, no call, not even a forwarded holiday meme. I sat on the front porch for a while, wrapped in my old winter coat, sipping coffee that had gone cold. The street was quiet. Most of the houses were dark now, kids asleep, adults doing dishes, holiday magic winding down, and I was alone. Again. That night, I couldn't sleep. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every Christmas from the last 10 years. Some of them were good, some just tolerable. But they all had one thing in common. Matt had been there. Until now. I kept thinking about that last Christmas we spent together, how he fell asleep on the couch after dinner, Sarah curled next to him. I had looked over at them and thought, this is enough. This is what love looks like. Even in the silence, even with the distance that was already starting to grow. Back then I convinced myself that any closeness, even occasional, was still a kind of victory. But this year had shattered that illusion. The car was still in storage. The letter was still unopened, and my son was still silent. I walked downstairs around midnight. I hadn't turned on the Christmas lights in days. They still hung outside, frozen in place, like the joy they were supposed to represent had gone brittle. I sat at the kitchen table and finally opened the envelope, not to send it, just to reread what I had written. I just want to matter. Those words hit differently now, sharper, more desperate, like a flare shot into the dark that no one ever saw. It wasn't just about this Christmas. It was about every call he didn't return, every vague maybe when I asked him to visit, every time he said "next time, Dad," and I pretended to believe it. Maybe he had every right to carve out his own life. Maybe Sarah was helping him do what I never did, set boundaries, move forward, live without guilt. But I wasn't looking for guilt. I was looking for connection. A few hours before dawn, I finally got up, went into the garage and grabbed the box of old photos. The kind with real prints, glossy, faded, edges curled. I sat on the living room floor and flipped through them. Matt's first day of school. Matt with chocolate all over his face on Easter. Matt holding Margaret's hand at the beach, both of them smiling so wide it hurt to look at. And there, in the middle of the stack, a photo I had forgotten existed. Matt, age 10, sitting in the front seat of my old truck. He's beaming, one hand on the wheel. Margaret had written on the back, "He said he wants to drive like Daddy one day." I stared at that photo for a long time. Then I did something I hadn't done in days. I cried, quietly, fully, because the truth had finally settled in. Matt wasn't just doing his own Christmas. He was doing his own life. And maybe, just maybe, he no longer needed me in it. It was December 27th when the phone finally rang. I was in the garage, sitting in the driver's seat of my own car, engine off, heat off, and just hiding, really. Sometimes the garage felt smaller, safer, like the world outside couldn't touch me in there. The screen lit up with his name, Matt. For a second, I just stared at it. Then I answered. "Hey," I said, voice cracked from disuse. There was silence on the other end. I thought maybe he'd hung up. Then he spoke. "I went to get the car today, from the lot." I waited. "They asked for a release form, said it's still under your name." "Yeah," I said, flat. "That's right." Another pause. I could hear him breathing. "I thought you might have changed your mind," he said. I didn't answer. "Dad," he continued, "I get that you were hurt, but this felt like punishment." I looked down at my hands, dry and trembling. "Maybe it was," I admitted. Or maybe it was the only way I knew how to say, "You hurt me too." More silence. Then, softer. "I never meant to." I nodded even though he couldn't see me. "I know, but you did." He sighed. "I thought you wanted me to grow up." "I did," I said. "I just didn't think that meant you'd grow away." There it was. The ache. The truth I'd been circling for weeks. "I wasn't trying to replace you, Dad. I just wanted to have something that felt like ours, me and Sarah." "And that's okay," I said. "You should build that. But there's a difference between building something new and throwing the old away like it never mattered." He was quiet for a long time. "I didn't mean to throw you away," he said, and I believed him. "I still have that letter," I added, "the one I wrote but never sent." He chuckled gently. "That sounds like you." "Yeah," I said. "That sounds like me." A few seconds passed. "I'll come by in January," he said finally. "After New Year's. Just me. We can talk." I swallowed hard. "Okay. And I'll pay to register the car in my name." I smiled. "Now that sounds like a grown-up." He laughed a little. "I love you, Dad." I didn't expect it. I didn't brace for it. It hit me in the chest like a warmth I'd forgotten how to carry. "I love you too, son." When the call ended, I sat there in the garage for another 10 minutes, eyes closed, heart open. No promises were made, no wounds fully healed, but something had shifted. Maybe the last string between us hadn't snapped after all. Maybe it had just gone quiet, waiting to be plucked again. The days between Christmas and New Year's always feel like a strange limbo, a week where time loses shape, where the world seems hungover from all the lights and laughter. For me this year, that week felt like standing at the edge of a thawing lake waiting for the ice to give or hold. Matt didn't call again. He didn't need to. We'd said what mattered. Not everything. Not yet. But something. And that was more than I had dared hope for. I took down the Christmas decorations slowly, one light strand at a time. The angel on top of the tree came last. Matt had made it out of pipe cleaners and paper when he was in kindergarten. Her wings were bent and her smile crooked, but I kept her every year. When I placed her back in the box, I didn't cry. Instead, I whispered, "See you next year." The Civic stayed in the lot. I didn't release it, not yet, not out of punishment. I think I just needed a few more days before I let that chapter close. Because that car, that gift, had become so much more than metal. It had become a symbol of how I still saw myself in his life, necessary, present, offering something he still needed. But he didn't need the car anymore, he needed space, and I was learning and slowly, clumsily, how to give it. On New Year's Eve, Claire invited me over. She always did. I almost said no again, but something in me was tired of the quiet. Tired of pretending I liked being alone. So I went. The house was warm, noisy. Her boys were playing video games, and she'd made too much food, like always. At midnight, we stood on her porch and watched neighborhood fireworks explode in small, colorful bursts above the snow. "Did you talk to Matt?" she asked gently. "Yeah," I said. "We're trying." She nodded. "That's good." I looked up at the sky, then down at my watch. The new year had officially begun, a fresh page, still blank. Still uncertain, but no longer sealed off. When I got home that night, I did something I hadn't done since Margaret died. I left the bedroom door open while I slept. And I dreamed, not of the past, but of my son. Walking up the porch steps, letter in hand, asking if I had time to talk. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't wake up with a lump in my throat, just a kind of stillness. Not peace yet, but maybe the beginning of it. It was January 10th when I heard the knock. 3 quick raps like he wasn't sure if I was home, or maybe he was hoping I wasn't. I stood still for a second, holding my breath. Then I opened the door. There he was, Matt, standing on my porch with a wind-burned face, gloved hands, and eyes that didn't quite know where to land. "Hey, Dad," he said softly. "Hey," I replied. We stared at each other for a beat too long. Then I stepped aside, and he walked in. He took off his coat, looked around like the place had changed. It hadn't, but maybe he had. The silence was thick but not hostile, just fragile. I offered him coffee, and he nodded. We sat at the kitchen table, 2 mugs between us, steam rising in quiet spirals. He was the first to speak. "I've been thinking a lot, about everything, about you." I nodded, let him continue. I didn't realize how far I'd drifted. Or maybe I did. I just didn't want to admit it. Sarah, she helped me see it. After Christmas, she asked me something I couldn't answer. "What was that?" I asked. She asked me if I ever missed you. He looked up at me then, and I realized I hadn't let myself miss you, because if I did, I'd have to face how much I've pushed you away. My chest tightened, but I stayed quiet. "I was scared," he continued, "scared that being too close again would mean I'd owe you something, or that I'd disappoint you, or..." He stopped. "Or that I'd disappoint myself." I exhaled, slowly. "You never had to earn your place with me, Matt. You were born with it." He blinked hard, looked away. "I'm sorry, Dad. About Christmas, about the car, about not showing up for you. In so many ways." I reached into the drawer and pulled out the envelope, the letter. I slid it across the table. "I wrote this. I never sent it. Maybe I didn't need to." He looked at it for a long time before opening it. He read it in silence. When he finished, he didn't say anything, just folded it back carefully like it was something sacred. Then he said, "I still want to come home sometimes, not just to visit, but to remember who I am." I swallowed hard. "This will always be your home." He nodded, eyes glistening. "I also went to the DMV," he said, almost awkwardly. "The car's in my name now. I'll be covering insurance and everything. I thought it was time." I smiled. "That's good." Then we just sat there, letting the warmth between us settle. Not everything had been said, not everything had been fixed, but something had been healed, and that was enough. Matt stayed for 2 days, not long, not like before, but enough. We didn't talk about the fight again, not directly. We didn't dissect who was more right or more wrong. We didn't need to. The air between us had changed, softer, like spring thawing the hard edges of snow. The second night, we made dinner together. Just spaghetti. Simple, like it used to be when Margaret was alive and we were scraping by, eating around the kitchen island, laughing with mouths full. We sat at the table with our bowls, the sound of forks against plates, and I asked, "Do you remember when you burned the garlic bread that Christmas Eve?" He laughed. "You still bring that up?" "It smelled like someone lit a shoe on fire," I grinned. We laughed. Real laughter, the kind that untangles something inside you. Later, as we sat in the living room, he looked around and said, "You haven't changed much in here." "I guess I've been waiting," I said. "For what?" I paused. "For you to come home." His eyes dropped for a second. "I don't know if I'll ever move back, Dad. My life's in Chicago now." "I know. I just mean—" He looked at me. "I'm not that kid anymore." "I know that too." I reached over and picked up a small snow globe off the mantel. It was one Margaret had bought, a cheap little thing from a gas station, I think, but it had a charm to it. Inside, a tiny family stood under a pine tree, snow swirling around them. "I kept this," I said. "All these years." Matt smiled gently. "Mom loved snow globes." "I think she just liked the idea that you could trap a perfect moment in glass," I said. "No noise, no aging, just stillness." He was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, "Is that what you've been trying to do with me?" I looked at him. "Maybe." And then I added, "But I'm starting to understand that moments aren't meant to be trapped. They're meant to be remembered and let go." He nodded. Before bed, he hugged me. Not a quick, polite hug. A full, long one. The kind we hadn't shared in years. "I'll come back again," he whispered. "More often." "You don't have to promise that," I said. "I want to," he replied. And I believed him. When I lay in bed that night, I didn't feel the ache I'd been carrying for weeks. I felt the weight of something else. Relief. Not everything had been restored, but something had been reclaimed. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was standing at the edge of his life waiting for an invitation. I felt like part of his story again. Matt left early the next morning. He stood in the doorway with his bag over one shoulder, his hair messy from sleep, eyes a little glassy, maybe from the cold, maybe from something else. "I'll text you when I get back," he said. "Drive safe," I told him. "Keep an eye on the oil. That Civic tends to burn through it faster than you think." He grinned. "You and that oil." We both laughed. Then we stood there in a kind of stillness, not awkward, just full. He reached out and hugged me again. Not rushed, not rehearsed. "Thank you," he said into my shoulder. "For what?" "For waiting for me." I didn't say anything, just held on a second longer. When he pulled away, he looked me in the eyes and added, "I wasn't ready before, but I want to do better now. I want us to talk more, know each other again." "Me too," I said. And I meant it. He stepped out into the snow, gave me a wave, and drove off. I stood at the door long after he was gone, the way Margaret used to when he left for school, watching until the car was out of sight, like letting go was a ritual you had to do slowly, or it would tear something inside you. Back in the kitchen, the house felt different. Not full, but not hollow either, just quieter, settled. I picked up the letter from the table, the one he'd read, and tucked it into a drawer, not to hide it, just to let it rest. Then I walked into the living room and turned on the lights of the Christmas tree, even though it was weeks past due. The room glowed soft and warm, like a heart that hadn't stopped beating after all. I thought about the car, about how I had clung to it as a symbol of sacrifice, of connection, of control, and how, in the end, it was never about the car. It was about feeling like I still mattered, and somehow in the mess of silence and stubbornness, we found our way back to that truth. Margaret used to say that forgiveness wasn't a moment. It was a process, a choice you made over and over, one small act at a time. I think she was right. Matt hadn't apologized with flowers or speeches. He came home, he sat down, he listened, he remembered. And so did I. As I turned off the lights that night, I looked at the snow globe on the mantel, the one with the tiny family frozen under the pine tree. I didn't wish for time to stop. I just wished for more moments like this. A few weeks later, I got a package in the mail. No return address. Just my name written in Matt's handwriting, and inside a small wooden frame. Inside the frame, a photo. It was us. Taken years ago by Margaret. I didn't even remember it being taken. Matt was maybe 9 or 10, standing next to me in the driveway, both of us covered in grease from changing the oil in my old truck. His grin stretched across his whole face. My hand rested gently on his shoulder. On the back of the frame, he had written just one line: "Thank you for showing me how to fix things, even when they're hard." I sat down on the couch with the frame in my lap and let the stillness of the house fill me, not with loneliness, but with something steadier. Grace. It wasn't a dramatic ending. There were no grand gestures or cinematic reunions, just a slow, quiet rebuilding, one brick at a time. Forgiveness showing up not in words, but in presence, in effort, in humility. Since Matt's visit, we've started calling more regularly. Nothing long, just check-ins, little windows into each other's lives. He tells me about work, about the new couch he and Sarah bought. I tell him about Claire's latest obsession with bird feeders and the neighbor who still doesn't shovel his sidewalk. Sometimes we talk about Margaret. He always grows quiet when I mention her, like the memory still lands heavy on his chest. But now, he doesn't turn away from it. And every now and then he asks me something that catches me off guard. Did I like spaghetti when I was little? Was I scared of thunderstorms? Did Mom ever sing in the car? It's like he's trying to reassemble something, a map back to his childhood, back to the people who held him up before he could hold himself. And I get to help him do that. Not because he owes me, but because that's what fathers do. We show up. We wait. We forgive, even when the words are slow to come. Even when they never come at all. I don't know what future Christmases will look like. Maybe some years he'll visit, maybe others he won't. Maybe life will keep pulling us in different directions. But I've stopped clinging to the idea of what it should look like. Because what matters is that when he's ready, when he needs me, when he reaches out, I'll be here. Not with conditions, not with silent expectations, just with love. Because being a father doesn't end when they stop needing rides, or when they move away, or even when they forget to call on holidays. It ends only when we stop choosing to love them, even in the silence. And I'm not done loving him yet, not even close. Now tell me, have you ever been through something like this? Have you ever felt like someone in your family just forgot you existed, or had to swallow your pride, carry love silently, and forgive, even without ever hearing an apology? Leave a comment below and tell your story. We read every single one, because sometimes just writing it down is the first step toward healing. And maybe, just maybe, your story will touch someone who needs it right now. If this story moved you, share it with someone in your family, with a son, a father, a sister. Sometimes it's a story like this that starts to rebuild a broken bridge. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. There are more powerful, heartfelt stories coming. Stories that heal, that stir emotions, and that just might bring you closer to forgiveness. And now, click on the next video that's showing up on your screen. It's another deep, emotional story, one that could be exactly what your heart needs today. I'll see you there.